Nintendo has pulled out the proverbial Wii boxing gloves and hit back.
And welcome in to the Gaming Discourse. I am Tyler Frater alongside Richard Day the Cruz.
Hello.
And Chief Engineer Lieutenant Commander Connor Frater.
Hello.
It is Monday, April 4th, 2022. Follow us on Twitter and Facebook at The Gaming Discourse. Go to our YouTube channel, YouTube/Gaming Discourse, where we post videos. Go check out the Halo Infinite video I posted a couple of weeks ago. Go check out Far Changing Tides, a review I did for Far Changing Tides. Working on some stuff right now, some pretty big stuff that we'll talk about, I think, probably next week.
When we're ready.
We do have news, we do have games, we do have tidbits later, so it's a full show.
It'd be an interesting show if we didn't have news.
Yeah, it'd be a weird show if we didn't have news.
Off the cuff.
Just 30 minutes of us talking about video games we're playing and then tidbits and then end of the show.
We could find something to talk about, I think.
What have I been playing?
Oh boy.
So, still more Horizon Zero or Forbidden West.
I always do it. I always do Zero Dawn.
Yeah, and it's weird because it implies that the game's name is Horizon.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah.
Like Horizon Zero Dawn was like it's like, okay, the game's name is Horizon Zero Dawn. But Horizon Forbidden West kind of makes you think that the title is Horizon.
The franchise name is Horizon.
Horizon, which is a weird franchise name, but anyway.
So is Halo.
Well, but it's connected to the thing in the game.
Yeah, but
there's
it's
nothing in Horizon that connects it to Horizon, or is there? It doesn't matter. It's a fine name.
It's
a great
Aloy's
game.
last name. Aloy Horizon.
Aloy Horizon. Aloy Guerrilla Games Horizon
Yeah,
PlayStation
exactly.
Jim Ryan.
Wow, what a name.
So I've been playing Forbidden West. It keeps getting the combat keeps getting better and better. The weapons keep getting better and better. There's one weapon I haven't even used yet, and it's just because the weapons that I have are super useful. So it's like I don't know, and it's a new weapon, and I haven't found it's like, oh, this one looks useful, but what it does, my bow does better. So why do I need it? So I don't know if I need to experiment with it and if they're better in certain areas. But I had a boss fight in Forbidden West that was it was so freaking good. And the best thing about this boss fight was I took off. It was a big machine. There are like two types of machines in Forbidden West, and I think in Zero Dawn too. There's the machines that you'll just find and fight, and then there's the machines that are really big, really complicated, really powerful.
They're just meandering around the world, right?
And they're like they're in their zones, but they're like events. It's like
it's a world boss.
They're sort of boss-like.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You're not going to fight two of them at once or something like that. And if you do, it's going to be really challenging. Well, where other machines you may fight 2, 3, 5 at a time, whatever. But this machine that I fought, really cool, really difficult, and I had knocked off all of its components. So in Forbidden West, when you fight a machine, you can knock off opponents. And then certain opponents, if they are undamaged when the machine dies, you get resources from them. Mm-hmm. Or you can blow it up, and that'll heavily damage the machine, but you don't get their resources if you kill them, right? So it's a give and take. But anyway, this boss fight I was in, it was just a great boss fight, and I knocked off all the machine's components, and it was still alive. So I was like, well, shit. And usually, if you knock off all the components, it does enough damage. All the components, it does enough damage that the machine dies. But this one was still like, I'm still here, right? So
I didn't hear no bell.
I didn't hear no bell. So I looked at, so I scanned it, whatever, found its weakness, and I had one weapon that dealt the damage, the type of damage it was weak to. And so I had to use this weapon that I don't typically use a lot. It's more situational. It's the tripwire. But I started using the tripwire, and it was just so much fun to be forced to use a weapon I never use and like change combat that way. Because now I'm not shooting things at it. I'm shooting these tripwires on the ground, and I'm trying to position myself in between, right, the wires in between me and the machine to make it come at me so it lands on the tripwire so that it gets damaged, and then I can run up to it and do a critical on it. And it's so much fun, and it's not like that has happened all the time, you know, because some machines, their weaknesses are to specific elemental types, and you find weapons with randomized elemental attributes, right? So you may find a bow that does great shock damage, and it's like, hell yeah. But maybe you find a bow later on that's better at ripping off components. So you can keep both bows, but then you can only have like 6 weapons or whatever on the weapon wheel. But then you have 2 of the same weapon on the weapon wheel, you know? Or you can have 6 different weapons that all sort of satisfy different situations, which is great.
6 different bows.
So, yeah, and you could totally do it. That's sort of the cool thing is you can have, and I don't know if you could do this in the first game or not, but you can have 6 hunter bows. The hunter bow is like your standard. You know, your sort of standard bow. You could have 6 of them, and it's all the elements, and that's the only thing you use, and it might work. But other weapons do different types of damage and have different attributes. Minor spoiler, one thing that I haven't tried yet, but I'm excited to, is a new ability with a tripwire. There's a specific ammo type that instead of firing a tripwire, it fires a shield wall in front of you. And,
cool.
And it supposedly protects you, but I haven't used it yet, but I'm excited to. Anyway, I think... I'm just gonna say this. I'm gonna say it, and you know, whatever consequences befall me. Befall me. But I think Forbidden West is better than Elden Ring.
Oh, we got canceled.
I think Forbidden West isn't perfect, but I definitely am enjoying it more than Elden Ring. Even though I loved the hell out of Elden Ring. Forbidden West just, I don't know. Maybe it's just because there's characters with dialogue. But all the characters are so well written. And they're so interesting. From Erend to Aloy to Varl to Zoe, who you'll meet later. A couple other characters. They're all really interesting. You meet a Tenakth character later on. And the Aloy's relationship with this Tenakth kind of starts out rocky, you know, because the Tenakth are territorial and they're warring and whatnot. But as you get to know this character, they develop a relationship, and this character kind of has a sense of humor, and he's not too bad of a guy, you know. But when you first met him, it was like, hey, you know, screw you. So it's a nice little relationship there. And of course, all these characters are reckoning what they used to know about the world with what Aloy is showing them, right?
Yes, because now she's actively telling people.
Yeah, because now she's going around and she's, you know, explaining to people, hey, these machines aren't gods. They were built by, you know, by us, by old humans 1,000 years ago, and they're explaining all these things and these characters. And it's cool. You know, it kind of reminds me of this show. It's really niche. It's called Star Trek. So anyway, in Star Trek, you have characters. You know, you have these characters. They in the good series, at least, when they encounter something, it's like they don't react like a normal human would react because these are Starfleet officers. So it's like the first thing they do is they start to analyze it. They start to ask questions. They're scientists and engineers, right? And they start to figure it out. And it's kind of cool to see that on screen. And so in Forbidden West, it kind of reminds me of that because these characters aren't having the, I don't know, cliched like mental breakdown, what is my life reaction to learning all this stuff. Instead, they're sort of accepting of it. And that makes them really interesting to hear when they talk about old world stuff. Because sometimes it's funny. Like at one point, if you walk through your base, you'll hear like little idle dialogues. And at one point, Erend was like, so the old worlders had something called pizza. It was just bread, cheese, and sauce. I'm sold, right? Like something funny like that. But then every now and then they talk about how, like, you know, pollution and why were old world humans polluting the ocean and why couldn't they have done it differently? So it's like they have these silly things that they're learning about the world, and they have these more serious things. And it's just really enjoyable to watch all these characters reckon with it. And it makes me excited to see where it goes from there. I don't know if I'm close to being done or not. I'm going to tell you something once you get into it.
Yeah.
So you'll get to a point in the story where you get 3 main missions.
Is that the areas you choose?
Yeah. So you get to a point and the map sort of opens up in a sense. It's after you get to your base, and you get the main quest branches into 3 main quests that you can complete in any order. Do the one in the desert.
That's what I've read.
Yeah, do you want to do that one first? Because you get something that's super useful, and I could not imagine what the game would be like if you did that one last, and you tried to do some other things, and you were like 40 hours in, and you still didn't have. It has to do with swimming. I don't want to spoil too much.
Well, I already know what it is.
but you want to get that first. Because it's so ridiculously helpful.
So you telling me I could swim through the sand? Is that why I'm in the desert?
Well, there's something underneath the sand, but I don't want to spoil anything. I don't want to spoil anything.
Walk without rhythm.
The cavern.
Yeah, there we go. A little Dune reference. Nice. But I don't think I have anything else to say about it. I still haven't completed the 3 main missions. But I'm going toward my final one right now. And, for all the cliched open world sort of, stuff that I don't like about it, and it does have a lot of really odd, like I've talked about before, random bugs, for all that stuff, the game just has moments where you're just blown away. Have you, I don't know how far you've gotten, but there's one of the new machines is modeled after a kangaroo.
Oh, cool.
Have you seen this thing?
No, I haven't seen it.
So that is cool in and of itself.
Yeah.
But the kangaroo's attacks are so freaking cool looking. It's one of those things that it is distracting how cool it looks.
Oh, man.
Because these things jump, spin, and then they open their legs and smack their legs together. And you're like hopping away from it. But it's so smooth and fantastic to see these attacks. And a bunch of the machines just have attacks and movement that it's just like you can't. It's just that feeling where it's like, how did people make this, and it works, and it's so freaking good. And of course it's fantastic when you dodge an enemy attack and you turn around, slow motion, hit him with an arrow, knock off some piece, and it blows up, and it's just I guess it's just it's a relief to play a game. that's not like, please go get the ring so you can be the manor of the castle and the volcano with the giant squirrel that's going to eat your face, but you're not actually dead. It's like, all right, whatever. I don't know what the hell's going on.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, so I hope it don't get canceled for saying that Elden Ring's the worst game ever made. Just kidding.
Well, if we weren't, now we are.
Yes. Who's next? Oh, me.
Sorry. I didn't assign.
I'll
anybody.
do mine real quick.
Sure.
I didn't, so go ahead.
There you go.
Okay,
All right.
No games.
Let's see here. Let's go with a couple things. We'll save. I'll start with just a quick gushing about Genshin Impact. For a game that is free to play, not that I don't believe they aren't putting their all into the game, but there are things that happen in the game that surprise me because of the detail. And the gameplay of Genshin Impact is very hack and slashy, which I thoroughly enjoy, switching between 4 different characters so you can kind of combo off each other. But one thing they really solely focus on very, very much throughout the game is the combination of elements. So if I were to shoot somebody with like an electric bow and arrow and then throw a fireball at them, it'll cause an overload and an explosion will happen because like the fire and the thunder or lightning react to each other. Or if I, ice somebody and then fire, it would be melting. And so like a different reaction will happen. So all of your fights are based off that. Those also kind of translate to the real world without them telling you. So there's a character I use, and she throws fire. She's like a mage. And when I have her standing in water, let's say water's like waist high, she throws them kind of side to side. And it's neat to watch. But her third one, she'll throw side to side. Her third one, she'll jump up and overthrow it to the enemy, which is really neat. But when I stand in the water and I throw those 2 fireballs, they don't appear because she's hitting the water. And so nothing happens because she the fire is hitting the water, like it just
Oh,
evaporates.
it actually cancels out?
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
But the third one, because she does a slight hop and overthrows it, it activates, like that one goes.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm watching this game that is free to play and ostensibly like, you know, not much effort is put into it, at least from the outset of certain individuals. But there's a lot of things that make that they paid attention to. They didn't really have to.
Sure.
So something like that is really neat. There's a character my wife was playing with me, and she noticed characters' heights take into account of like how things work as
really?
well. So that character I was mentioning who throws fire, she's very short. So she's going to start swimming in water faster than someone else who is taller.
Oh, yeah.
So I think that is kind of neat, neat as well, even though it's not really something that
affects gameplay all that much.
it's just a very nice detail. It's like gushing over like Uncharted when, you know,
Sure.
you're close to the fire and you're like, it's like, oh, that's so cool. Like,
Walking through the grass and Horizon.
Oh, yeah. Touching
Aloy
it.
licks her
Yeah.
hands. Still blows my mind.
It means nothing. It's just really nice to see. And it's really,
Sure.
it makes me happy. But also I know they probably, if you're making a game, you'd have to think about this stuff. And that's a nightmare to me.
Yeah, that is a
that is
nightmare.
just such a nightmare.
In Breath of the Wild, if you had a spear that was fire damage and it was on Link's back and it was touching the snow, wouldn't it melt the snow? Did you ever notice that?
It probably does. So they actually,
I don't remember. But
They just found out in Breath of the Wild that if you do create fire, so Skyrim, if you use a fire magic on water, it boils it. Like they just found that out like a couple weeks ago. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. And the same thing happens in Genshin Impact. Like if I throw a fire like at water, like it'll start to steam in that area.
Oh, neat.
So-
Okay, I didn't know that.
But I think, Breath of the Wild, they did find out something about that.
Okay.
So
Cool.
Elden Ring.
Oh boy.
I still very much love Elden Ring.
Oh yes, me too.
I love
Don't get me
playing. I
wrong.
love playing.
Sure.
I am hitting the wall, but not necessarily gameplay wise, but more of the why am I doing this wise. Me and my good friend were having a conversation, and we were throwing lore back and forth at each other. Lore. And he sends me this link, and he's like, "Hey, check this lore out." And I was like, "Okay, cool." And I click the link, and I start reading it. And it is a 58-part Twitter post explaining the lore of the character on the main cover of the game. Which is not you, it's somebody else. Which is cool. But about 5 or 6 like posts into it, I stopped reading it. Because, and my friend was like, "Oh, was it too long?" I was like, "Well, it was a little too long, but also it is just the fact that I'm not told this in the game whatsoever." And it would be so cool if it was, because it would keep me going. Part of the reason why I play games is for a story. I mean, I can play games that don't involve story.
Sure.
But that's just another reason to keep me going. And so when I hear another story, there's a character named Selen. She's a mage. She's part of the Raya Lucaria Academy.
Oh,
She gets kicked out.
I think I've actually met her.
Right.
Is she in a dungeon?
Yeah, she's in a dungeon.
Okay.
She gets kicked out. You find 2 of her bodies. She has 2 different bodies out in the world. One is hung up like on chains, and the other one is just standing. She like looks dead. She's just standing like that. You go and fight Radon. He's one of the side bosses. And when you get to his castle, there's a festival going on, and his followers or one of his followers are like, "Hey, we've put on this festival just for you guys, for our General Radon, our great general, to see who can defeat him to, whatever." Okay, cool. You beat Radon. And it's like, okay, I'm gonna go. I'm gonna leave. It turns out that guy who's like, "Hey, he's important." Like, he's just a guy who's like, "Hey, thanks for being here." But if you go back and talk to him, he's like, "I don't know what I'm going to do now. Well, I guess I'll see you later." You find him at Selen's body, one of her bodies, and he's like, "Yeah, I'm a witch hunter. This is a witch. She was one of the baddest witches ever, but I guess she's dead. So I don't, whatever." you go back to Raya Lucaria after taking care of Selen's body, and her original body dies, and you put it in a different whatever. You have to either choose when you get back to Raya Lucaria to help her fight this guy or help him defeat her. But the only time you ever meet this guy is this one part, whereas you've done this whole mission for Selen, and it's like, why am I going to choose this guy over Selen? Like, Selen's cool. She's been helping me out.
Yeah, right.
But all of this context in between is just completely lost because the game decides to just not tell you any of this stuff. And that festival that goes on, the backstory is really cool because General Radon got infected by the rot and he went crazy, but his followers still loved him. So what they do is they put on this festival to find somebody to kill him, to put him out of his misery, because that's how much they love him. Like,
right.
So he could die honorably. And it's like, that's really cool. You guys didn't tell me that, like any of that.
Yeah.
And I would have loved to hear it, but it's in a position, there are going to be people who love the lore and go search it out, and that's fine. But I'll use this example again. You know, PS4 sold 100 million units. Out of the 100 million units, just over 20 million people bought God of War. So if over 100 million people bought a PS4, but only 20 million bought arguably one of the greatest games on the console, like, take that into account. How many people are going to play Elden Ring? How many people are actually going to take the time to go figure out this lore compared to how many people are just going to enjoy the game? And how much do you think the game could be enjoyed more if we got that lore? If that makes sense.
No, I think it makes sense.
Yeah.
I think I don't disagree with your preference. And we've had this discussion before, and I don't think you're arguing this. But what we cannot argue is that it is like intrinsically bad to tell your story that way. Because I don't think that's true.
But it could be better.
Yeah, but it's not like it's not a detriment like to the company that they.
No, not at all, because they're making hand over fist,
Yeah.
and that's great, and that's great for them.
Yeah, but that's
you know,
a separate thing.
Making. I guess you could call it asymmetric storytelling, to where the story has all the information the players don't.
It's non-linear. It's what's the word for it that everybody was using? Secretive. It's a synonym for secretive, but I'm not coming up with it right now. But like I'm fine with the way that From Software tells their stories. I do think that it lends a sense of there was a word, not mysticism, mystique. It lends a sense of mystique to the story that their stories may not have if they just told you them, right? Does that make sense? Because it's mysterious,
right? And
you take that mystery away, and now it's just a story. And so I think a lot of people, that mystique is part of the driving force, and that's what interests them and stuff like that. It's very similar to, if you just told a story about a portal that opened, and from this portal, a bunch of otherworldly beings came into the world and started killing human beings, you're like, well, that's kind of boring. But what if I said, okay, but actually, instead of it being straight, it's a town called Twin Peaks, and there's an FBI agent who likes pie a lot, and that's what David Lynch made, right? Is this, you take this really straight story, you add in a surrealism and all kinds of weird stuff, and it becomes something a bit different.
See, but the issue there is eventually you get all that information in Twin Peaks.
You don't, actually.
you get enough of it.
You get enough of it that you're able to infer. And you're able to start pinning pieces together.
And I think people would argue that you get enough of it in Elden Ring. And I'm agnostic. I really don't know. And part of the reason why I don't know is because about 5 minutes in, the story comprehension side of my brain just checked out.
there's a part where you go back to the round table hold.
Yeah.
And you get invaded by one of the guys that hangs out there.
Do you have to drop down to do it?
No.
Oh, okay.
No, like round table hold is just darkened.
Oh,
and
cool.
You get in, that dude who's standing against the wall, all cool.
Yeah.
He invades you and tries to kill you at the round table hold.
Oh, cool.
So you kill him, and then you talk to the guy at the table who's like reading stuff, and you ask him about the guy. He's like, "Oh yeah, I told him to do that. Sorry." That's it. Like, come on. Like what? Like I don't. It's unacceptable. Like to me. because it's not going to make me go like. It's going to make me go like, that's it? Like, wait, where is the next part? Like, what are you supposed to tell? And that I play my games, I guess, differently. And my end game, I have an end game. I want there to be something to grasp onto. Like Breath of the Wild. Breath of the Wild didn't really have a story, but it had enough of it for me that I was able to put things together.
Sure.
Whereas I don't feel like Elden Ring has enough for me to put anything together.
Okay.
All that stuff about Radon that I talked about, I had to get that from a forum, from a thread.
And I would prefer it if From Software's games were a little less mysterious. Cryptic, that's the word I was looking for. Thank you. Oh. I would prefer it if they were a little less cryptic. Sure. I just wouldn't wade into the territory of calling it like intrinsically bad or something like that. In totality, there may be bits and pieces where it's like, okay, the only reason this is cool is because they didn't tell you. But they told you, now it's just dumb, you know?
I guess I'm also coming from a part that, like, if I were to, you just called Horizon, like, probably your favorite game of the year or game of the year or whatever, until God of War comes out, if it comes out this year. But if I were to go through, like, Elden Ring, open world, excellent, this, excellent, it's that one part, without that one part, I can't call... I mean, it's definitely going to be one of the best games I played this year. Like, absolutely. I can already say that.
Yeah.
But I can't call it perfect because of that. Like, I can't call it a masterpiece because of that.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, it totally does.
No, not if that does make sense. Fuck
sure.
you.
Whoa.
You want to go? WrestleMania was last week. I'm pumped.
Are we ready to move to news?
Yes.
Play the ad. We're doing it live. Play the ad. We got a new Mac. Play the ad. We'll do it live. Fuck it.
We want to give a massive shout out to the sponsors of this episode. They have been silently supporting us since the very beginning, and we felt it was time to give them some love. The like and share buttons have been at our side since episode 1 of the podcast. They can be found just beneath this episode. Please give them a click. It helps us greatly. If you're feeling lucky, click the bell icon to enter for a notification anytime we post new content. You may be surprised by what you get.
We're live. We're on right now.
Yes.
I don't believe you. New PlayStation Plus membership tiers have been announced. The new PS Plus will launch in a phased... Man, speaking of cryptic writing, I think From Software wrote the sentence from PlayStation. New PS Plus will launch in a phased regional approach, starting in Asia and moving to North America and Europe in the June timeframe, which sounds like if an alien had to figure out how to say sometime in June, but wasn't really fluent in English, so they put it in the June timeframe, you know? Anyway, so it's gonna announce, this thing is gonna launch sometime in June. So we have PS Plus Essential, which is the same benefits as PlayStation Plus today at $10 a month. PlayStation Plus Extra, everything from the Essential tier, as well as a catalog of up to 400 PS4/PS5 games, including games from PlayStation Studios and third-party partners. Games in this tier are downloadable, and that's $15 a month USD. PS Plus Premium is everything in the previous tiers. Adds 340 additional games, including PS3 games available from the cloud streaming, classic games from the PS1, PS2, and PSP for downloading and streaming, and then cloud streaming for PS1, PS2, PSP, and PS4 games from the premium and extra tiers and markets where PS Now is available. Lastly, time-limited game trials for select games, and premium is at $18 a month USD. At launch, PlayStation plans to include Death Stranding, God of War, Marvel Spider-Man, Miles Morales,
Mortal Kombat 11.
I like it. Da Cha Cha, and Returnal.
Awesome. I can't wait. No, I don't like the discussion that's already like cropping up that it's like some sort of answer to Game Pass. And yeah, I suppose it is, but really I don't think they're too much alike. Because I think that if Game Pass, well, I guess they do offer original Xbox and 360 games. But the streaming is the downside, especially for a lot of the PS4 games. I don't know why they can't have those downloading. The PS3 games, I understand. The PS3 architecture was really crappy. It was. I mean, PCs can run PS3 games, but it took them a long time to do so. And I don't know if Sony's willing to take the time to do that, especially when there are a lot of good PS3 games, but I don't think there's a ton that I'm not chomping at the bits for, like, to play Killzone or anything. Or Haze. You want to play Haze? I don't want to play Haze. What?
So I think maybe the bigger issue. So there's the preservation thing, right?
Yeah.
There's that angle. How many of these games that are going to be streamable? There's not going to be any sort of physical or digital copy. And how is it in PlayStation's power to do that? And why aren't they doing it? They're doing that, right? And that would be a couple of questions that I would say specifically about the streamable titles and stuff like that. I think the pricing, I think Xbox Game Pass is $15 a month on console, right?
Yes.
And $10 on PC. So it's right around the same thing. $18 a month is a lot. I think that's higher than every streaming service off the top of my head.
I think so. But
at least base costs. I don't know if you add like a bajillion things to Hulu, obviously it's going to cost more, but like just the base cost, I think that's probably higher than any streaming service out there. PlayStation's really protective of their first party IPs. And
yes, they are.
So, this didn't indicate that, God of War Ragnarok was going to launch on the service.
No, not at all.
I don't think that's going to happen.
No way.
And especially because we say, Microsoft's a software company, Sony's a hardware company. You sell consoles at a loss, and how do you make back loss? You got to sell the apps. And so PlayStation has a bunch of first-party apps that they're really proud of and always make a ton of money, so that makes sense. Where Microsoft can recoup those costs in other ways. And, another thing I'm curious about is how Bungie fits into this, right?
Oh yeah, the live service stuff.
Like, is there going to be any sort of implementation there? I don't know how, but it just seems like that would make sense, right? To say, hey, if you subscribe to PS Plus, you get access to the Witch King 4 or whatever. I don't follow Destiny 2, which you get early access to that. It comes out in September. You get it in June, I don't know, stuff like that.
Yeah.
I think that would be interesting if it happened. But yeah, so this is cool, I guess. It's just, I understand what you're saying that, you kind of get like exhausted. It's a response to Xbox Game Pass.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel as like adventurous and way out there.
Well, no,
as Game Pass
it feels
is.
like they're doing it because everyone else is doing it.
Yeah.
Like that's it. And yeah, you are right. Like Microsoft, their products, not the gaming side, but just in general, their products are needed like around the world. Like it's gone to a point where it's not, I think I'll get it. It's like, no, you have to have it in order to, it's either them or
Windows.
Apple. Yeah. So they have a constant influx of money that will be there. So they have the opportunities to try things like Game Pass, whereas Sony doesn't really have that. And
Sony, I would imagine, also doesn't really have the infrastructure. Maybe it does. Maybe that's a stupid sentence. I don't know.
No, I think you're correct. And 2011 with the PS3 and the when they got hacked and all that stuff. Yeah. And then ongoing, but there's that. But also Sony, I think that there has been enough goodwill with their first party titles throughout the last decade plus that people, when God of War Ragnarok is coming, you don't even have to see the trailer. People just go, yeah, I'm going to buy that. Like it just off the bat. And games are still selling like gangbusters. Spider-Man, Miles Morales, still selling like crazy. Last of Us 2 is still selling like crazy. So I think they definitely know where their strengths lie as far as their first party products go, and they're not gonna give that up as easy.
Yeah.
Because we already see. I mean, I think I saw Costco the other day had Halo Infinite for $9 already.
Really?
Yeah. Like some of them did, not all of them, but I mean, yeah, but
It's not worth it.
What about $8?
I don't know.
$7.50.
I don't
what
know.
about $15 a month with Xbox Game Pass?
You have to pay me for me to watch Cortana blow up a planet again.
I love how like the first week Tyler was like, Halo Infinite is so great, and then
It was.
just like the worst thing I ever fucking played.
Then reality set in.
Why do I sound like freaking? I don't know. That sound like Solid Snake or something. Hey, fucking Halo Infinite. Anyway,
Infinite Halos.
Infinite Halos. I thought it was interesting that Sony pointed out that their streaming tech is like super old because it's just like you haven't done much with it.
Yeah, no, they haven't. Yeah.
Shit, here we go again.
Also it is another. What games are they going to have on there? That's a big deal. If they have stuff like the great RPGs like Suikoden into or Parasite Eve or the Resident Evils, I think people are definitely going to be inclined. Metal Gear Solid, people are definitely going to be inclined to sign up because those names and the way people react to them are definitely make people create knee-jerk reactions and purchase right away. So,
and I do wonder what their third-party partners meant. Like, does that literally mean third parties, as in, I don't know,
Konami, Capcom?
Sure,
Green
yeah,
Party.
like other big. What was that?
Green Party. Third parties.
Yeah, these other presidential nominations. No, because I think that could be really big if they were to get like the Konamis and I don't know, maybe Ubisofts. I have no idea. Other companies to work with the platform somehow. Yeah, because the Xbox Game Pass is just such a good deal right now. It's ridiculous how good, especially with Bethesda on there, and who knows what's going to happen with Activision Blizzard and what's going to be on there. And it makes me. I think making Halo Infinite free, its multiplayer free, was a mistake. Even if it was making a ton of money and it was super successful, I would still call it a mistake.
I don't think it was a mistake. I do think the customization microtransaction part was a mistake.
But I think so let's wind back the clock, all right?
Okay.
So let's say that you release normal Halo multiplayer, okay? And it's a $60 purchase, but you launch that sucker on Game Pass day one, right? And you still have it split from the single player. Sure, your barrier to entry is now $15 or $10, right? And that's not free, and you may take more of a hit that way. But I guess what I'm trying to get to is I do wonder if Infinite would have had a bigger impact had it launched as a paid product and it was concluded on Game Pass, as opposed to being a free-to-play game with like a ton of microtransactions and stuff like that. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
Because I don't think it would be crazy in an alternate universe.
But it already did it made a huge impact at first. The microtransactions.
And I think it may have been a little bit more sustainable had it been a fully fleshed out product on Game Pass, right? Because in a lot of people, that Game Pass subscription would essentially be
I don't
the
think
recurring spending
right.
that they want from microtransactions and stuff like that.
That's true. But it would have been the same product regardless, I think.
Oh, yeah. I guess if you're arguing with like the gameplay itsel's or something.
The gameplay is excellent. I personally think the gameplay is excellent.
I do too.
But the behind the scenes, Destiny, I'm going to bring Destiny into this. Destiny itself has, I understand Destiny's been out for years, but even at launch, Destiny had way more of a selection of free customization options than Halo Infinite did. Halo Infinite relied way too much on their microtransactions and not enough output of, because I still get asked by one of my good friends, because we used to play Halo Infinite all the time, are there any new maps yet? No, sorry. Like there's still no new maps yet. And it's how many, 4 or 5 months now?
Yeah, December.
And nothing to show for it. So I think, well, I guess you are right. Like they shouldn't have done free to play if they didn't have the team to keep outputting content.
Sure. It was the only reason I was bringing it up was
The bash on Halo.
Yeah, we're supposed to be talking about PlayStation. What the hell?
Sure. But, how do you... Xbox has this thing.
Xbox.
And they have the Xbox, and they have their first-party games. How do they implement it along... How do they, link it to their first-party titles? Mm-hmm. And so here's Sony doing it. Sony didn't really have that live service-y game. They bought Bungie. So it's like, okay, now they have Bungie. Now they have this subscription service. How do they link those two things? Do they do it at all? It seems like it would be a natural extension to figure out how to fit those two things together. And I guess I was just talking about Xbox because it's a similar case. And I think over there, their handling of Halo Infinite has been not a success thus far.
Okay.
Not a complete failure.
That makes sense, yes.
Because they made money, whatever. But had they done something different, it could have made more. So, moving on. Allegation. Sorry. Go ahead.
One thing I just wanted to bring up with the.
I apologize.
With the PlayStation plans at launch to have Death Stranding, God of War, Marvel, Spider-Man, Miles Morales, Mortal Kombat 11 Returnal, is if you're subscribing to the premium tier that gets you that, chances are you've played most of those games already. If you're that dedicated to being the PlayStation user.
Yeah, that makes sense. You're right.
And so now, and this goes into like, well, what else are they adding? They really need to start answering that question. Well, what else are you adding? Because those are good games, but you're selling to you're selling to your market base already. Like you're not like trying to pull in new people. You're also primarily trying to get the people that are already playing it or using the PlayStation Plus to adapt to this different subscription model and to get the tier they want. So those people are already playing these games. What else are you going to give them to incentivize them to not just do the $10 a month just to keep that going?
That makes sense.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really good point, and I would agree. And when I try to think of what Jim Ryan would say back, I don't know.
Something about doing it for the kids.
Probably. I had something on my brain, but we're just going to move on. Allegations of sexism, bullying, and burnout at Undead Studios. So this is another story, and it seems like we've had one for every podcast for the past couple of weeks or so, but it's super complicated. There's a lot. It's not super lengthy, but it is lengthy-ish. Kotaku spoke with 12 current/former employees. Many felt positive about certain aspects of the studio. Some said it still has room to grow, but has overall been a good place to work. Most considered the last few years since Undead was acquired by Microsoft to be a period of crisis, and worried management hadn't learned their lesson. Undead Studios developed State of Decay 2.
Oh, right. Okay.
And currently developing State of Decay, making State of Decay 3. Jeff Strain founded and then sold the company in 2018. And at the time, that was surprising to employees. I'm just going to sort of go through the history, fast track this real quick, summarize it to get to some of the points here. Philip Holt then became studio lead. Some sources accused Holt of nepotism as he fast-tracked hired buddies from previous studios to head up satellite offices in Florida and Illinois, thus making himself a more important figure in the larger company, and Microsoft denied that this is how this went down. Other problems at Undead include poor management and sexism. 9 sources describe various patterns of discrimination against women, non-binary people, and other marginalized people. One former employee recalled male coworkers asking her to take notes during meetings and commenting on her appearance. Holt hired Ann Schlossler as the studio's first head of people and culture. She was an experienced PR pro from Dell, Lowe's, and the software side of Microsoft. Sources said Schlossler did little to combat discrimination, which Schlossler denies. Eventually, Microsoft HR got involved, interviewed dozens of employees, and Schlossler quietly left the company. Microsoft declined to comment, and Schlossler said her departure was due to a reorganization at Microsoft. Meanwhile, general poor management and sexism led to turnover and burnout at Undead. State of Decay 3's E3 2020 trailer showed a zombified deer and devs were confused as to whether or not zombie animals were even going to be in the game. In 2021, an internal demo went very bad, and management worried they'd have nothing for the game to show to Microsoft. One source said, quote, "They kept piling on more features for more demos. It was a complete mess. People left and were replaced by juniors. To quote a producer, I'm not an expert at code or anything, but our system should be past the prototype stage. Even when the experts at code told him, no, it's not even working at all yet, they ignored that comment and added more features to the deadline," end quote.
Interesting. I wonder, it sounds, at least that last portion when it came to the trailer for State of Decay 3, it sounds like an Anthem situation where it's kind of like,
sure,
things are being shown and developers are like, oh, wait, we're doing this. That's very wild because I wonder, I guess we can pinpoint that to Philip Holt's inclusion to the studios. Because that's after State of Decay 2 came out.
Yeah, the timeline overlaps a bit.
Yeah,
and things are weird. I think so. The story in total, I think, is interesting because it has a lot of elements from other stories that we talked about. You brought up Anthem. There's sexism. There's turnover. There's another HR department that seems to not have been doing its job. I don't know if Microsoft would characterize it that way, but in this instance, Microsoft actually stepped in to change things, which is interesting because you're having a bigger HR entity stepping in to take care of an HR problem on a smaller scale. And you'd imagine that if you have your own HR department, that means something went wrong, right? So I think all that is really interesting. I read a comment, which I shouldn't have done, which you should never do.
Yeah.
But it was at the top of Kotaku's page, and I don't think I'm summarizing the comment wrong by saying that the comment was essentially asking what the news is here, because the entire story is, you have the founder leaves after a bit, new guy comes in, things start to fall apart, management isn't doing a good enough job. They bring in HR person's not doing a good enough job, and now we're here. So, but it all happened sort of in the past. So what's the news? But I think that the story in and of itself is one, it's indicative of problems in the industry. And I think just because something happened in the past doesn't mean you can't report on it or that it's not newsworthy or anything like that. Or, just because something isn't, and I'm not saying that this is not as bad as Blizzard or anything. I'm not here to compare, victims and abuse and things like that. But just because something doesn't have the scale of Activision Blizzard, right, doesn't mean that it's not newsworthy.
Right.
So that was just something that popped into my head. And again, that's just, that's the gamer TM that lives in my head that may or may not exist. And that could be totally my fault. But yeah, I think and at this point, like, this is just stuff that happens at game studios, and someone's got to figure out how to make it not happen anymore. Like, way too many stories talk about women being shouted down in meetings. Like, at what point is there going to be a studio where somebody shouts down a woman and they're like, all those bajillions of stories we've read about these past, 5 years about this happening, maybe we shouldn't have it. And then we shouldn't let this happen here, because it seems to be such a reoccurring phenomenon. And also the whole HR thing, like, it's so strange to me. And maybe it's because the nature of HR departments. Maybe it has something to do with the industry. Maybe it has something to do with society in general. I don't know. But it sure seems like HR just doesn't seem to be able to do its job effectively, and other people have to step in. So yeah, I don't know if you saw, but Jeff Strain he wrote a Medium, a blog, and he posted the questions Kotaku asked him, and he posted his answers to them. And I think it was a really interesting sort of picture of just how complex a lot of these things could be. Because apparently he talked about he was the studio, I think, was in Washington, and he lived in New Orleans. So every week he would fly to Washington to work, and he'd stay there, and then for the weekend he'd like fly back, and he did that for like 2 years.
Damn.
So part of him leaving the studio was that he just couldn't keep up with that work life schedule anymore, wanted to be around his family, so he sold it off and stuff like that. And so when you're a founder of a company and you're like detached at that sort of degrey, you know, what can go under your nose, what kind of culture can fester, how much is that his responsibility? I don't know. I think those are really complicated questions. I'm not someone that gives owners and higher up managers a whole lot of leeway. Like if something bad is going on and you don't know about it, well, that's your responsibility to know about it. Like I have no, sympathy for Yves Guillemot, and we know that, or Bobby Kotick,
of course.
But just seeing sort of his answers, was interesting because it painted a really complicated picture. Not to say that it recused him from anything or whatever. But yeah, I think that's all I have to say about this. I hope we can get to a point where these stories don't happen anymore.
It would be nice.
Yeah.
Maybe that
would mean the world is healing.
Yes. Are we good to move on?
Yep.
Okay, a quick update on Activision. They're getting close to an $18 million settlement. A federal judge said, right before I said federal judge, I said Tyler. Said and she are two different words. Don't push them into the same word. And then you know what I did? I shed. I put them into the same word. A federal judge said she intends to sign off on the settlement with the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, which calls for an $18 million victims fund. Claimants must have worked at Activision Blizzard on September 1st, 2016 or later, have a viable sexual harassment / pregnancy discrimination or related claim. It establishes 3 years of oversight at Activision Blizzard to ensure internal change. And a quick reminder, the EEOC's case and the Department of Fair Employment and Housing for California are two different cases, but the settlement could affect California's case. And the two organizations have argued back and forth about this. It's been sort of a weird side story to the whole Activision Blizzard thing. I don't have much to say about this, but I don't know what amount of money can fix things, or if it can fix a thing.
It's
just like, I'm not somebody who is an expert in how to handle like abuse or fix gigantic industries. But I don't know, man. For everything that we've read, 18... maybe not. Maybe 18 million. Bobby Kotick stepping down. A few other executives stepping down. Maybe that is enough. I don't know. Maybe that is like, I don't know. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
But sometimes I read 18 million and, Bobby Kotick, he trips and falls and 18 million accidentally comes out of his, his pockets. So it's just like, it seems so low, but whatever.
The money is nice, but that should not be the solution.
Sure. Yeah. That's probably a better way to put it.
Yeah. 100%. So the solution is change, obviously within the companies and whatnot. And this is, once again, the hush money. This is hush money. Or
you think so? Well,
I don't think that is all that this is, but
it's not hush money.
Well, I read
the settlement.
It's, we're settling things. We're done after this.
Yeah.
Well, I did read something that, let me see if I can pull it up. Okay, right here. So I'm reading an Axios story. But it was subject to review by U.S. District Judge Dale Fisher, who requested changes along the way, including clarity that women who brought claims against Activision could go public about them, even if the company was gagged from doing so. So it's not like... it's not hush in the sense that they're, you sign this you get this much money, but you can't talk about things anymore.
Right.
But if you're saying it's it's like a quick settlement to we just want to be done with this.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's probably sure. Why not? That's probably that's probably part of what's going on. And man, you remember when Activision called this a joke?
Yeah.
Just wagged their finger and said, "Oh, this is a joke."
And
now here we are.
I think when Richard, you said hush money, I think it's less hush towards the plaintiffs and more of just like getting the media to back off of it. Because when people read, company reached a settlement, they generally assume that, oh, that's the end of it.
Yep, that's it. Yes, yep.
Okay.
I agree.
No, yeah. I think you're right. Are we ready for tidbits?
Yeah, we are.
All right, do it live. A man discusses the news, but not like the big news, the little news. Little bit. This is the tidbits. I see the camera, Connor.
I'm the star of the show now.
The camera has slowly been panning toward Connor, and I don't fucking know why. I forgot to tighten that part of the tripod. What is a fucking tidbit, Richard?
Jesus.
I'm not ready.
I'll do the sounder again.
I'm kidding. Loop Hero devs say pirate our game to their supporters. 4 Studios, which is based in Russia, they are the developers of the game Loop Hero, has responded to fans on Twitter about the prospect of paying for their game amidst the ongoing war between Russia and Ukraine. 4 Studios does not support the invasion of Ukraine and has told their fans, quote, "We can handle it, thank you. If there is such an opportunity for you to provide support, take better care of your loved ones and friends," end quote, in response to a question about fans supporting the studio. The studio followed up with a developer update stating that there is, quote, "nothing wrong with torrents," and that it received many offers of donations. Publishers Devolver Digital released a statement saying, quote, "Devolver Digital fully supports 4 as they navigate this incredibly difficult period. We have been communicating consistently with the team to help them wherever possible, and were alerted of the statement ahead of time, which we back 100%.
Yeah, it's just an impossible situation.
It is.
That's the right way to handle it, you know?
Yeah.
It's just an impossible, stupid situation.
Yeah, it is, unfortunately. But I hear Loop Hero is a great game, though, and I haven't played it, but a lot of people are addicted.
I remember actually something you tweeted that I haven't told you about.
Oh.
Stuck in my mind.
Okay.
It was the day that the invasion began, and you tweeted out I just want to play video games, man.
Oh, yeah, man. Yeah.
And it reminded me of that. It reminded me of the lyric in Waiting on a War, Foo Fighters.
Yeah.
Never really wanted to be number one, just wanted to love everyone, Just like, God damn it. And now you have these, you have Russian developers that are having to make ridiculously decisions that are decisions in a video game that are made that way to be impossible.
There's a meme of a guy like pushing a small domino and it goes into a big domino. It's like wanting to make a cool game, invasion of Ukraine. like that's like what I think. It's like, man, trying to survive.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, but thankfully Devolver Digital is supporting them. Steam is also somewhat supporting them. They understand that the situation sucks, but I think they said in late April is when funds can start going back over there because of the sanctions and whatnot.
Sure.
But moving on, Nintendo. Oh, God. Sorry. I was laughing when I wrote this, and my wife was like, "Why are you laughing so much?" And I was like, Nintendo fights against children in Joy-Con drift case. In the ongoing class action lawsuit against Nintendo and Joy-Con drift, Nintendo has pulled out the proverbial Wii boxing gloves and hit back against their case. Nintendo lawyers have recently argued in a case, Sanchez versus Nintendo of America, that certain individuals suing the company have no standing because the ones affected by Joy-Con drift issues are children. Nintendo has claimed that the children cannot sue the company because they, quote, allege no cognizable harm to themselves, end quote. In addition, Nintendo's defense cited that the end user license agreement, the EULA, that Switch users must acknowledge before using the system states that they must be over 18 to accept. An arbitrator has actually ruled in favor of Nintendo's defense and has claimed that the 2 mothers representing the children in question cannot proceed with the class action lawsuit. The lawyers representing these plaintiffs have pushed back on this ruling, though, and have pushed for a federal judge to examine the case. And it's official. All Nintendo fans are children.
This is gonna go to the Supreme Court, isn't it? I know it can't. I don't know, but let's just pretend. Can we just live in a world where this goes to the Supreme Court? Wouldn't that be amazing? You have like a case about the rights for individuals, freedom of speech, and then after that, it's like, all right,
Nintendo versus the children.
yeah, and you've got some 1,000-year-old Supreme Court justice trying to understand what a Joy-Con is.
Joy-Con drift, Roe versus Wade.
Anyway, all right, sorry. Continue.
I just started because Nintendo would just never not.
Oh no!
Then,
And no, listen. Nintendo is. They are not the shiny, happy Kirby company that
never have
is
been.
on the front of the box.
Never have
They are
been.
just as cutthroat, dogmatic, and angry as Konami, as Xbox, as the rest of these companies. They want to tear everything down just as much as Bobby Kotick, but they have a game.
They're doing it wearing a Tanuki suit.
They have a game, yes, and they have a game where you toss a banana behind you and the car behind you spins out of control. So they get a pass, but yeah.
I always think about when the 3DS was out, like I think the first year or two it was out, like Reggie did that video and he's like, you don't know a 3DS? What's wrong with you? Like, he's just like, what the hell is this? Anyways, NetEase is reportedly acquiring Quantic Dream. I don't have too much on this, but as a follow-up to our earlier story, Chinese company NetEase is reported close to acquiring Quantic Dream. We had covered the story about Quantic Dream. Quantic Dream's reasoning for releasing that Star Wars Eclipse trailer as a means to create buzz for a buyer for their company and also to hire people onto their team. It's not clear if the deal has gone through or what stage of the process it is. We've just heard that is a possibility.
Good for Quantic Dream, I guess.
I suppose they won't be able to.
Such a weird studio.
Yeah, weird French studio.
Yeah, well, I mean, they're not weird because they're French.
No, but it's they're weird because of David Cage.
Yes, they're weird because of David Cage. That's for sure.
Who just happens to be French.
Yeah, who just happens to be French.
Well, there goes all our French listeners.
Shit. Anyways, that's all the tidbits I got this week.
Sweet, cool. All right.
I don't know when NPDs are. I'll message Matt about that. I'll get on that.
We'll get on it.
I mean, Wikipedia's already listing NetEase as their parent company.
Oh shit! Wow.
Follow us on Twitter and Facebook at the Gaming Discourse. Go to our YouTube channel, YouTube/Gaming Discourse. Check out the Halo Infinite video. Check out the Far Changing Tides video. And we'll see you next week.
Bye.
Wave
Bye.
to the camera.
Just me.
It's off kilter.
It's on me.
It's on me too.